Welcome back to Franco Fridays. We have good news on the Franco front. Blu-ray wise, we've got Severin just released two titles, which I picked up. One of those I'm going to talk about today. Another one probably next Friday. And then Full Moon is releasing some Franco on Blu-ray. I think this month actually. So we've got more reviews to look forward to as far as Franco, if you like Franco. Today I'm going to talk about a title from Severin, and that is Black Boots Leather Whip from 1982. Produced in 82, I think it actually got a release in 83. This is a this is a crime noir thriller, which is a little, and it's really basically, if you were not to know that it was a Franco directed film, you might be hard pressed to realize it is. If you didn't know who Lena Romay was, and you didn't know Franco directed it, I mean, you could argue that almost any notable crime noir director had done this film because it's really played pretty straight. There's not a lot of the Franco-isms that you typically see in his films, like the close-ups and the surrealism and some of those things. Of course, the sex. There is sex in this, but it's not to the extent that you normally see with Franco. It's just played straight. Antonio Mayans, who was in a lot of Franco films, he actually was one of his best friends and helped him with some of the productions. He plays a detective, Al Piera. And apparently, this Al Piera character is something that Franco had been dabbling with for many years. And he appears in certain films throughout Franco's career. Starting way back, I think, even with Attack of the Robots from the 60s. So Franco dealt with the spy subgenre, crime thrillers. So he did like those type films, and this one is really typical of the genre. Al is basically approached by Candy Costner, who, of course, is played by Lena Romay. And Lena wants Al to go get some or retrieve some incriminating photos of her so that it doesn't jeopardize her inheritance, or she's married to this, for the lack of a better term, this bisexual character that I think she's worried that if he finds out that she's kind of playing around on him, that he'll cut her off. But it's not as simple as that. Al goes to do that, goes to retrieve these photos where Lena tells him to go, and then all hell basically breaks loose. And from there, you've got a plot that where Al is he's kind of a. I'm not going to say he's like a Peter Sellers Inspector Clouseau, but he is extremely naive, and he just doesn't pick up on any of the warning signs. Lena Romay is she's basically a prostitute, lady of the night. She works at a nightclub, and that nightclub does sex shows, and so she's all about the money. And I don't think Al's picking up on all the signals. It's an interesting crime noir. It's got a great ending. Really, I think most people that are seasoned crime noir type people will probably know where this film's going to go, probably by 45 minutes into it. Just watching Lena portray this Candy Costner, how unemotional she is. She just goes through all these sexual meetings mechanically. I mean, she's all about the dollar. She's all about what's in it for her. There's so the title of the film, Black Boots Leather Whip, you would think, well, this is probably just some softcore porn from the 80s that Franco did, and it's a lot of endless scenes of genitalia close-ups and things like that. But that's not the case at all. In fact, there's really no close-up genitalia. There is a scene where Antonio Mayans is once again sent on a crusade by Lena to bump off somebody that's a risk to her, and this in order to do that, he has to go through this session where this lady they whip him, with a belt. So there is one standout scene where that occurs based on the title, but that's it. It's not an S&M movie or anything like that. I thought it was very good. I really did. It's so unusual though for a Franco film because, well, first of all, Franco has a reputation for being very artsy. His imagery can be very surreal at times, and there's none of this. This is shot very straightforward, focusing on the story and the characters. The surreal imagery that you usually get in the Franco film is not there. It's very workmanlike in its pacing of the film. The other thing, and this is something I didn't like about the film, is the music. Franco's known for some really beautiful scores. Daniel White has done most of those, and I think he did this one as well. They're jazzy, they're nightclubby, Franco had a huge love for the jazz, and that shows in a lot of his films. They're very interesting scores along the lines of some early Miles Davis. But here you've got this. He's switched gears, I guess, because it's the '80s and it's a different time and a different type of music. But it's very keyboardy, synthesizer type. It sounds very much like Giorgio Moroder kind of stuff on crack. I mean, it's just not good. I didn't like it. I didn't like the musical score at all. But that's a small quibble. Overall, I did like the film, and I give it a 6.5 out of 10. I thought it was an unusual departure for Franco, and a really, to some extent, a refreshing one. It was a straight directed film about a crime thriller. It's well acted. It's interesting. So yeah, I thought overall I enjoyed it. I just had a few quibbles with it, like the musical score. This release, there's been a number of releases with Severin that they've had. Stephen Thrower does In the Land of Franco. There's part 5 on this release where he goes back to the filming locations. That's very interesting. This one focuses on the locations for Bloody Moon, Count Dracula, Dracula versus Frankenstein, a couple of those like that. So it was very interesting. Most of the scenes in this film were shot in Andalusia, Spain, or Costa del Sol. A lot of his films were, and this one's no exception. This also has a 37-minute overview of the film by Stephen Thrower, where he talks about it at length, the production of the film and some of the background on it. And then finally, you've got a very informative audio commentary by the guy that does the Paul Naschy cast. He's a Naschy fan, and now he's kind of branching out into Franco. And then the guy that runs the website for I'm in a Franco State of Mind. So they did a very informative commentary on this film. So overall, I would say this is a kind of a must purchase if you're a Franco fan. And even if you're not, this is not your typical Franco film. If you're thinking this is just softcore porn from the 80s, you'd be sadly mistaken. It's much more like a crime noir from the 40s, at least in terms of the inspiration for the film. So I highly recommend it. Glad I purchased it. And that's going to do it for this week's Franco Fridays. I will be back next week. I'll probably be back before next Friday with an overview of my Nuclear Meltdown bundle purchase from Severin. I got a couple titles to watch before I do that. Appreciate you watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.